All right, welcome to Separate is Not Equal, reflecting on the 70th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, Kansas, 1954, and DEI in California. I am Dr. Shonda Goward, the Associate Vice Provost for Undergraduate Advising and Success at San Jose State University, and the Network Director and Advisory Board Chair for the CSU Student Success Network. We're going to open this morning with Dr. Madeline Carrick, the interim executive director of Ed Insights, to tell a bit more about our organization where the network is housed.
Thanks so much, Dr. Goward. The Education Insights Center, or Ed Insights, is a research and professional learning center housed at Sacramento State, committed to advancing anti-racist approaches to policymaking and practice in higher education. To do so, we offer a range of evaluation services drawing on the equitable evaluation framework developed by Jara Dean Coffey and specializing in collaborative multi-partner evaluations. We conduct applied research on timely topics in higher education to inform and improve policy and practice. And we run the California Education Policy Fellowship Program with the Center for California Studies. And we also facilitate the CSU Student Success Network, which has brought us all here today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Carrick. So what is the CSU Student Success Network? It is a network developed by staff, administrators, faculty, and students with financial support from the state of California, College Futures Foundation, the Kresge Foundation, and the James Irvine Foundation. We create spaces and provide resources for people on all levels of the CSU system, particularly our middle leaders, in support of increasing graduation rates, equity-based inquiry and action, and closing critical opportunity and outcomes gaps. It is our goal to transform the lives of Californians by unleashing the full potential of the California State University as a broad access public university whose faculty, staff, and administrators work together to provide students with outstanding equitable opportunities and outcomes for post-secondary learning and success. And we'll tell you a little bit more later on how to get involved with us. Next slide. Before we begin, and because Ed Insights is housed at Sacramento State, we are sharing the native land acknowledgement of Sacramento State to acknowledge the land on which many of us are working through at this moment. And we encourage you to take time to think about the land where you are as well. Sacramento State acknowledges with respect the land our campus is on today and continues to be the homelands of the indigenous people of the area, the Nisenan, specifically the Nisim, Pamanan, and Miwok. The larger Sacramento area and its rivers serve as a gathering place for many local tribes from the surrounding valley and foothills, including the Southern Maidu, Patwin, and Winson. Sacramento State recognizes these lands and riverways as unceded traditional territories of these Native peoples. We further recognize these California Native nations and respect their sovereignty. By offering this land acknowledgement, we affirm the university's commitment to build relationships and foster a university environment of success to better serve Native nations and communities. We also want to acknowledge this morning that everything is happening everywhere all at once. There are injustices happening in towns, in cities, and across the world, and people are speaking up to address them. Today, we are focusing on this particular issue to perhaps learn from the past so we do not make the same mistakes as we move into the future. I am not even one generation removed from desegregation efforts. I'm a California local and was bused to kindergarten across town, as was my mother before me. My mother, who was 7 years old before the U.S. gave her full rights as a Black woman born here and a descendant of those who endured chattel enslavement. The legacy of Brown is one that is often not discussed in California, as though what precipitated the case could not and did not happen here. I am thankful that the good people who will be speaking today will share with us more about how and why that sentiment isn't true and what we can do from our desk today to ensure that the future is brighter. Next slide, please. How do we do this work in the network? We have different strands. First is our oldest strand, the Middle Leadership Academy. The network supports faculty, staff, and administrators, middle leaders, as we step into leadership to advance student-centered, focus changed on campus. Through strong connections, we connect folks across the CSU and today the California community colleges and the University of California system. And we welcome you and thank you for being here. Knowledge sharing, whether it's in the MLA through our Knowledge Center memos or other work, and through campus project development. We are working with good folks to advance equity-based work and evidence-based work throughout the system. Next slide, please. As we move throughout the day, we do have some hashtags for social media. They are listed there, particularly for the site formerly known as Twitter. Next slide, please. This event would not be possible without the partnership of the California State University Chancellor's Office. And to provide greetings today from the Chancellor's Office, we have Dr. Dilcie Perez. Dr. Perez was appointed Deputy Vice Chancellor for Academic and Student Affairs for the California State University in April 2023. She joined the CSU Chancellor's Office with more than 23 years of experience in student affairs. In this role, she has served as liaison to the CSU campus's vice presidents of student affairs and senior diversity officers. For her efforts to advance student success and equity, she was recognized with the Cal State Student Association's Administrator of the Year Award. Please welcome Dr. Perez.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Dr. Goward, for your kind introduction and for leading the work of the CSU Student Success Network. And to Dr. Kendrick for leading certainly your Ed Insights and just your partnership. Very grateful for that. And I'm thrilled to be here with all of you today. I'm especially excited by the incredible mix of minds and hearts we have with us today, faculty, staff, and leaders from across our 23 Cal State universities. And thank you so much to each of you for investing your time in this event, to the wonderful team of folks who have helped to coordinate this. And we all know how much time it takes to plan a very thoughtful, intentional event. And so I want to thank all of you. But I want to thank you especially for keeping this vital network strong and active and relevant. And I'm especially excited about this conversation today. And this moment is not lost on me. As we take time to acknowledge and reflect on a landmark ruling that has paved the way for many of us personally and professionally, especially as we continue the vital work today related to certainly segregation and oppression and the impact that that has. We were just sharing prior to the start of the session that many of us have lived and spent time in the South, in North Carolina. I spent quite a bit of time, but as a child, I was in Macon, Georgia, and my parents often spent a lot of time and spent weekends marching for the civil rights movement. And as a child, I remember my parents and my father telling us as we drove through the town on a late Sunday afternoon to get on the ground because we were going through a KKK rally. So I think Dr. Goward said it, we are not far from where we were with segregation. And it is a somber reminder of the importance of this work. And so allow me to set the context for you just a bit and introduce you or reintroduce you to a third grader named Linda Brown. She and her family lived in a modest mixed-race neighborhood in Topeka, Kansas. And every morning, the Black kids like Linda were made to ride a school bus miles across town, while the white students attended school in their neighborhood. The Topeka School Board didn't know what was coming. As a leader of St. John African Methodist Episcopal Church, Linda's father, Pastor Oliver Brown, soon partnered with the NAACP and 12 other plaintiffs to end the segregation. When the Browns family case ultimately made it to the United States Supreme Court, a team of lawyers, all white men, argued that segregation was a custom that should be left to the states, that segregation wasn't really harmful to Black people, and that it would take time after the effects of slavery for Black children to be able to compete in the classroom. Well, we know none of this was true or accurate. Of course, we know about, and most of us know about, the legendary lawyer Thurgood Marshall, and how he prevailed. On May 17, 1954, the court passed its ruling, quote, "We conclude that in the field of public education, the doctrine of separate but equal has no place." Soon after, Dr. Martin Luther King called the ruling one of the most momentous decisions ever rendered in the history of this nation, and a reaffirmation on the good old American doctrine of freedom and equality for all. What I will tell you as I reflect on the individuals that participated in this law and confronting segregation, what I am awed by is their courage in the midst to take on this fight. There was power in this decision by the courts. There was power in dismantling racist policy, and there was power in affirming the value and promise of every person on this earth, including little Black girls and boys who some might dismiss. What we know to be true is that education is and should not be a privilege, but it is a human right. I would love to say that after this ruling, we all lived happily ever after, but we all know that that is not true. The truth is, landmark decisions like these are threatened today like never before. What we know is that there are individuals who want to take back that power and reinstitute segregation. Instead of a steady climb to justice and equality, our nation continues to often take 2 steps forward, but can sometimes tumble and take 2 steps back. The Brown versus Board of Education ruling wasn't a single watershed moment in 1994. It was the end of a long journey towards desegregation that was won court case by court case. And the same can be said of recent attempts to chip away at the rights and freedoms we fought so hard to achieve over the years, decades, and even countries. Just this month, less than 2 years after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, the Arizona Supreme Court dug over a dusty law from 1864 to ban nearly all abortions, denying women power over their own bodies and well-being. The reason I raise this today is if this can happen related to Roe versus Wade, then who's to say other laws might not also be jeopardized or questioned as well? At the National Association of Diversity Officers in Higher Education Conference in DC, Dr. Damon Williams gave a brilliant keynote on recent attempts to crush the power of diversity, equity, and inclusion. He cited more than 600 legislative proposals last year alone targeting DEI, race, gender, identity, sexual health, and reproductive rights, and international groups. The number of bills targeting the LGBTQ+IA community alone has multiplied tenfold, from 42 in 2018 to more than 400 last year. Of course, one way that we all know to protect our rights is to vote. But according to the Brennan Center for Justice, more than 356 bills were introduced across 47 states in 2023 that would restrict people's power to vote. Since the last presidential election, 27 states have created new obstacles to the ballot box. So the question is, 70 years after Brown versus Board of Education, how has a society and as a university system, how can we remain mindful of this delicate place that we are in? How can we protect the power of this landmark ruling and continue to advance the CSU's mission of equity and inclusive excellence? That, my friends, is the focus of our convening today and the topic of our discussions. We have a wonderful lineup of speakers and panelists, including faculty and student experts, and the incomparable Dr. Tressie McMillan Cotton, to help us challenge and our own assumptions, expand our hard-won successes, and consider and be strategic and intentional about charting a course for the future. And as we continue our journey, I often carry the advice from one of my bosses as we often were trying to address DEI efforts when I was in community colleges. And it really resonated with me when my boss, Dr. Jose Fierro, would often say that we will not make progress in DEI efforts until we seriously consider the public policy, the public regulations that are impacting and segregating people. And so today, I am reminded that as the nation's largest four-year university, most diverse university, often referred to as the People's University, we must also be considerate and mindful of the policies and practices that we have in place that we need to dismantle to ensure that all students feel like they are seen, heard, valued, and supported as they pursue their educational goals. Many of you know that the CSU has a long history of making powerful action for progress, Although this history is not without growing pains. Cal State campuses have often been a place of protest in the 60s and even today, as students push for civil rights, women's rights, and protesting to end the Vietnam War at the wake of the Watts Rebellion. CSU Dominguez Hills were relocated, many of you may not know, from Palos Verdes to Carson to bring the transformative power of higher education to communities that had been denied that power. The CSU is the birthplace of ethnic studies, as you will hear today. And in 2022, student leaders pressed the CSU for the first ever system-wide Juneteenth symposium to celebrate Black student achievement and to organize action to advance Black student success. And so in 2022, we celebrated the inaugural Juneteenth symposium, and we will have it again in 2024, just a few short weeks away on June 13th and 14th in Sacramento. And I hope that you will be able to attend either virtually or in person. Today, what you may know is that one of the most urgent priorities that the CSU has is to be a nationwide leader in Black student success. In June 2022, we submitted a report, last June 2023, we submitted a report that identified 13 recommendations that the CSU needed to implement in order to be a nationwide leader. We conducted over 250 listening sessions with over 250 people. And what really resonated with myself and the folks that were at the report was really that we did not want to have a report that we put on the shelf, that what we knew is if we did not do something immediately, and as page 7 of the report says, that we have a chance in the CSU of Black students and the population being unrecognizable in the CSU. And what I will tell you is to our Chancellor, Dr. Mildred Garcia, to our Board of Trustees, that is unacceptable. And we have a moral imperative to help support the students that we serve. What we know is through our policies and practices, we must ensure that we provide a place of welcome and learning for all students from all walks of life, so that every student attains the life-changing benefits of a Cal State degree. While I understand that this work, our work, can feel daunting at times, I truly believe, and I'm exceptionally confident, that together, with the wisdom, knowledge, and dedication, we have what we need to address these systemic challenges and issues. We know that the wisdom and knowledge is already in this room, literally here, right now. It is spaces and places like the CSU Student Success Network where new ideas and efforts are formed, where we are able to refill our cups and get re-energized to continue to do this very important and critical work. Again, I thank you for your unwavering dedication, and I hope that you enjoy and maximize this conference. Thank you.